Everybody, welcome back to Sossa and his box. Today we're going to have Sossa in his circle box. Probably right around here, or here, or here, or here. So today I wanted to talk about the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. Alright, so it's going to be pretty intense. We're going to talk about some stuff, and then we're going to start to see how intense Congress gets and all this like chaos. So, let's go to the slideshow. Alright, if this starts at the beginning, I apologize. Hey, nice. Alright, so, a Sossa talk on some history. Topic is the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. Now, to remind you, alright, let me move my bubble, thank you, sorry. After the Compromise of 1850, alright, the United States looked a lot like this, okay? Remember, these like purple areas are supposed to be free states, quote unquote free states, where slavery is not allowed. And these like orangey areas are supposed to be, well, it's the South and ahead where slavery is allowed. And the key thing to note for the Compromise of 1850 is that, well, these new territories got added. And again, the crisis was kind of postponed a little bit because of the Compromise of 1850. And these new spots were open to popular sovereignty. So, the big question is, so if we already figured this out in the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850, why does it seem like the United States still needs to figure out this slavery thing? You already said you had it. So why is it still a problem? Well, let's see what exactly happens. But for the Kansas-Nebraska Act, we are looking at this spot right here. All right, this is called the Nebraska Territory or the Great Plains. We'll see. So, the first question is, well, why did this all happen? All right, this started was because Senator Stephen Douglas of Illinois, who later on, if you've already gotten to it, is in a campaign against Abraham Lincoln for a Senate seat in Illinois, and then in 1860, the President of the United States. He wanted to build a railroad, of course, westward expansion. Remember, everybody, it's go out west, it's our destiny. And railroads are super cool, so let's keep doing railroads. And he wanted to build this railroad to California, and Stephen Douglas said, well, to make it easier, the Great Plains needs to become new official territories, not just one hunk of land. It needs to be more organized. So he said, let's have Kansas and Nebraska be a new territory. And so, Kansas-Nebraska Act, okay? Originally, he said it would just be two new territories, and because the territories were north of the line, right here, from the Missouri Compromise, he mentioned nothing about slavery in there because he assumed, well, it wasn't allowed. The South was like, interesting, but I want more information. So they came up with the final details, right? Kansas and Nebraska would be new territories. The Missouri Compromise was thrown away, and what was called popular sovereignty, remember that thing from 1850? The territories of Kansas and Nebraska were open to vote to determine if they were going to be free or if they were going to be slave states. Okay? This is, again, a true test of democracy. Well, if the government officials don't want to make these decisions, let the people decide. So they let the people vote for these things. And so you had some, well, crazy effects. And so this is what America looked like after the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. Note that these two territories above this line right here. Originally, it said no slavery is to be above here. But now this new Kansas-Nebraska Act said, well, we're actually going to leave it up to the people to vote, just like we did with Utah and New Mexico. We keep changing our minds and it's causing problems, is basically what's going on in this time period. Well, so let's talk about the effects of this type of thing. Oh, actually, let's back up. If you want to see the full evolution of the United States, this is an awesome trio of maps I found. But right up here, you have Missouri Compromise. Pretty simple. Free above this area, 3630 is the parallel. South of that is slavery. Okay? Pretty simple. Oh, well, let's make things a little complicated 30 years later, in 1850. All right, we got all this cool land. Look at us, woo! But let's make Utah and New Mexico. It's up to the territories, and then finally, let's expand it to more up in the territories. Like all those people can decide if it's going to be free or slave. It's getting complicated. It's freaking jeepers. It's complicated, guys. All right. Now, of course, how do you think Northerners felt? They weren't really feeling good about it. Anything that allowed slavery the opportunity to grow scared Northerners. They knew it was a political tool that Southern states were trying to do in order to expand slavery. So the North was like, "Oh God, the horror," and the South was like, "Yeah, I'm cool with that idea. Sounds great. People are going to vote for slavery." Okay, it's worked so far in the past. Okay. Now the effects. All right, so this is where things get a little crazy. American history is full of just like tension. It seems like, especially this time period. So what ended up happening was that Northerners and Southerners sent people to Kansas and Nebraska. All right, they sent them. They said, "Go there and vote. We need to determine if we're going to be a free state or these are going to be free territories or slave territories." So send Northerners to vote in Kansas. And then the South said, "Well, we're going to send Southerners to vote." And so you had this flood of people coming from the North, coming from the South, to vote to determine if these areas were going to be free or slave. Okay? And to make things even worse, Northerners, well, they sent weapons. And Southerners, they sent their younger generations. They're like, "Hey, you're like 20. Go to Kansas and Nebraska and then vote for it to be a slave state, and then you get a plantation. It's great. Thank you." Right? So, of course, when you have people going there to try and vote with weapons, you get some tension. What ended up happening was Bleeding Kansas, okay? You had basically these two forces meeting and clashing to determine if it's going to be a free or a slave state. It was like a mini civil war, okay? It's kind of chaos. In fact, a southern group attacked the city of Lawrence, which was an anti-slavery, so it's a bunch of Northerners. It's like their head. And so these Southerners went and attacked Lawrence and looted it and destroyed newspapers, burned down some stuff that was all abolition to try and squash the Northern push to make this into a free area. Like chaos. Gosh. But to make things even worse, what happened in Congress? We think today's politics are bad, all right? But at least so far, we have not seen a beating on the Senate floor. So this guy, Charles Sumner, right, gave a great speech that kind of, well, I'm biased, so he gave a speech that tried to tear down the institution of slavery and, passionately opposed this idea. And this guy, Andrew Butler, who was in the defense of one of the congressmen that Senator Sumner insulted, got up and beat Charles Sumner with his cane. All right, just like hit him and clocked him in the head. And Charles Sumner was like out of commission for a while, and then it was like absolutely chaos. Southerners even sent Andrew Butler new canes to replace the old one that was broken over Charles Sumner's head. So things were getting heated, okay? And it wasn't a peaceful time. It wasn't an easy time for this growing United States that continued to have this issue of, should we be free? What should we do with slavery? How do we solve it? Okay? All these abolitionists were trying to get rid of it, and yet the issue is becoming more and more violent and volatile. Okay? And there's really no simple solution. John Brown makes his appearance in this whole instance, where he leads a band of people who go and find 5 Southerners or slave supporters and like hack them to death with swords. Okay, like this is like crazy what's going on, but it really shows how divisive things were at the time, and how they tried for a democratic solution of let the people vote. Okay, chaos. Enjoy, everybody. Be good, be safe, be happy, and remember, Sosa in his box. You darn hooligans.